U.S. House of Representatives passes legislation to avert government shutdown. French soldiers begin to withdraw from Chad. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. You're watching World Today. I'm Jessica Lee. The United Nations Security Council on Friday extended a long-running peacekeeping mission between Syria and the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights for 6 months and expressed concern that military activities in the area could escalate tensions. Since a lightning offensive ousted Syrian President Bashar al-Assad earlier this month, Israeli troops have moved into the demilitarized zone created after the 1973 Arab-Israeli War that is patrolled by the UN Disengagement Observer Force, or the UNDOF. In the resolution adopted on Friday, the Security Council stressed that both parties must abide by the terms of the 1974 Disengagement of Forces Agreement between Israel and the Syrian Arab Republic and scrupulously observe the ceasefire.
The resolution underscores that, and I quote, there should be no military forces, military equipment, or personnel in the area of separation other than those of and of. End of quote. Therefore, the actual presence of Israeli forces in the area is illegal and constitutes a flagrant violation of the 1974 Disengagement Agreement.
The UN also expressed concern that the ongoing military activities conducted by any actor in the area of separation continue to have the potential to escalate tensions between Israel and the Syrian Arab Republic, jeopardize the ceasefire between the two countries, and pose a risk to the local civilian population and United Nations personnel on the ground. Now, Malaysia has welcomed the adoption of a United Nations or UN General Assembly resolution calling for an International Court of Justice or ICJ advisory opinion on Israel's obligations regarding the presence and activities of the UN, international organizations and third states in the occupied Palestinian territory. In a statement on Friday, the Foreign Ministry said the resolution was presented by a group of like-minded member states, including Malaysia, under the agenda strengthening the United Nations system. The ministry added that the resolution came as a direct response to the Israeli Knesset's recent decision to ban the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, or UNRWA, and its activities in Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem. The statement further clarified that Malaysia would continue to pursue efforts towards realizing the Palestinians' right to self-determination and justice in line with international law and the UN Charter, including through legal processes at the ICJ. Now, on another development of the story, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or OIC, on Friday welcomed the United Nations General Assembly's decision to request an advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice, or the ICJ, on Israel's obligations regarding the presence and activities of the United Nations, other international organizations, and third states. In a statement, the OIC stressed that all measures and plans enacted by the Israeli occupation, particularly legislation affecting the presence, operations and immunities of the UN, as well as other international organizations and third states in the occupied Palestinian territories, including East Jerusalem, constitute violations of the UN Charter and relevant resolutions. Now, these actions, the organization warned, deprive the Palestinian people of essential aid and and exacerbate the humanitarian crisis they are facing. The organization urged all states and international organizations to intensify efforts to end the Israeli occupation and enable the Palestinian people to exercise their legitimate rights, including their right to self-determination and the establishment of an independent state along the 4th of June 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital. The Republican-controlled United States House of Representatives passed legislation on Friday that would avert a midnight government shutdown, defying President-elect Donald Trump's demand to also green-light trillions of dollars in new debt. Now, after the vote, congressional leaders from both parties claimed victory, with Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson heralding the bill as America First legislation.
Well, good evening, everybody. We are really grateful that tonight, in bipartisan fashion, with overwhelming majority of votes, we passed the American Relief Act of 2025.
Johnson also said that Republicans would have more power to influence government spending next year when they have majority in both chambers of Congress and Trump will be in the White House. The legislation would extend government funding to provide $100 billion for disaster-hit states and $10 billion for farmers. The House voted 366 to 34 to approve the measure. Now, more Democrats than Republicans supported the stopgap bill, which required a two-thirds majority. A contingent of 120 French soldiers left Chad on Friday, marking the beginning of France's troop withdrawal, one of the last former colonies with which it still maintained a military presence. Now, according to news agency Reuters, it witnessed the troops boarding their plane and departing from N'Djamena Airport following Chad's surprise decision on the 28th of November to end its defense cooperation pact with Paris. The withdrawal process formally began earlier this month with the departure of two French Mirage warplanes on the 10th of December. France still has about 1,000 troops stationed in Chad, with the full drawdown expected to take several weeks. The move comes after France had already pulled its forces out of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger in recent years. Now, this departure signals the end of decades of French military presence in the Sahel region and concludes direct French military operations in the area. The terms and the conditions of the complete withdrawal, including whether any French troops will remain in Chad, are yet to be finalized between the two countries. Now, at least 2 people were killed and as many as 60 injured after a car rammed into a crowded Christmas market in the city of Magdeburg, the capital of the central German state of Saxony-Anhalt. Now, officials on Friday night described the incident as an intentional attack, and an investigation is underway. The police announced that the driver had been taken into custody at the scene. They also declined to give casualty numbers, confirming only a large-scale operation at the market, where people had gathered to celebrate in the days leading up to the Christmas holidays. In Magdeburg, a city of about 240,000 residents, the market was set up in a town square with stalls selling regional food and drink. Now, 8 years ago, a truck driver crashed into a crowded Christmas market in Berlin, killing 12 people and injuring dozens of others. Italian Deputy Prime Minister acquitted over kidnapping charges. That and more coming up next. Now, lawmakers clashed in Taiwan's legislature on Friday when members of the president's political party who had broken into the building overnight to occupy the speaker's chair tussled with members of another major party who forced their way in to evict them. Some lawmakers were injured in the clash, though it wasn't clear how seriously. At issue were 3 bills that the Nationalist Party or Kuomintang was trying to push through, including one that critics say would paralyze the Constitutional Court. The legislature approved 2 of the bills, one on the court that requires at least 10 justices to be present to make a ruling, and another that would stiffen the requirements for voter petitions to recall elected officials, and the court currently has only 8 justices with 7 vacancies. Now, debate on the third bill, which would redistribute tax revenues by giving a larger share to local governments, continued into the night. The Democratic Progressive Party, known as the DPP, was attempting to block any votes on the bills. Neither they nor the Nationalists won a majority in the last legislative election. Now, the Kuomintang, which took slightly more seats, has teamed up with a minor party to take control of the legislature and is jostling for power with Taiwan's President Lai Ching-te, who is from the DPP. A court on Friday acquitted Italian Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini of charges of kidnapping over 100 migrants aboard a boat he had blocked at sea for nearly 3 weeks in 2019 as part of a policy to curb irregular arrivals. After a 3-year trial, judges rejected a prosecutor's request to hand a 6-year jail term to Salvini, the leader of the far-right League Party, who is serving as transport minister in Giorgia Meloni's government. The verdict came against the backdrop of tensions between the government and the judiciary over migration after a court questioned the legality of a flagship plan to send asylum seekers to Albania in cases now pending with the European Court of Justice. Salvini had tried to prevent the Spanish charity Open Arms from bringing 147 asylum seekers to Italy in the summer of 2019 when he was Interior Minister, as part of his policy of closing Italy's ports to migrant boats. Now, the not guilty verdict was greeted with applause from League politicians who gathered in the courtroom to support their leader. Prime Minister Meloni said it showed the allegations were unfounded and surreal. Volkswagen announced sweeping changes to its German operations, including more than 35,000 future job cuts and capacity reductions in a last-gasp deal between Europe's top car maker and unions on Friday to avert mass strikes. The agreement was nevertheless hailed as a Christmas miracle by union leaders after 70 hours of grueling negotiations, the longest in the company's 87-year history, as there will be no immediate site closures, layoffs or wage cuts. Volkswagen has been in talks with union representatives since September over measures it says are necessary for it to compete with cheaper Chinese rivals, lackluster demand in Europe and slower than expected adoption of electric vehicles. Now, around 100,000 workers have already staged 2 separate strikes in the past month, the largest in Volkswagen's 87-year history, protesting against plans to cut wages, reduce capacity and potentially shut German plants for the first time. Now, VW said the deal would allow savings of 15 billion euros annually in the medium term and saw no significant impact on its 2024 guidance. VW said it was looking into alternative options for its Dresden plant and repurposing the Osnabrück site, while some production would be shifted to Mexico. In a protest against U.S. sanctions, thousands of Cubans marched in front of the U.S. Embassy in Havana on Friday. Now, led by Raúl Castro, one of the leaders of the revolution, and President Miguel Díaz-Canel, the demonstrators chanted, "Down with the blockade," and "We will never surrender."
Hacia los ciudadanos nobles de ese país, todo nuestro respeto y la mano siempre extendida para fortalecer los lazos de hermandad entre los dos pueblos. Es la misma mano que hemos extendido a todos los gobiernos de Estados Unidos desde el triunfo de la revolución hasta hoy siempre en función de una relación seria, respetuosa y en igualdad de condiciones. Pero si Estados Unidos persiste en su empeño de quebrantar nuestra soberanía, nuestra independencia, nuestro socialismo, solo encontrarán rebeldía e intransigencia.
In his rallying speech, Diaz-Canel also called on Biden to reverse Trump's designation of Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism, which has hampered its international financial transactions. Now, this first protest in over a decade in front of the U.S. diplomatic headquarters signals a more confrontational posture as it braces for Trump's administration. The Cuban government blames U.S. sanctions for the current depression, causing power outages, inflation, and shortages of basic goods. Now, some members of the workers' union, representing more than 10,000 baristas at Starbucks, began a 5-day strike at stores in Los Angeles, Chicago, and Seattle starting Friday, now citing unresolved issues over wages, staffing, and schedules. Now, this is the latest in a series of labor actions that have picked up pace across service industries following a period when workers at manufacturers in the automotive, aerospace, and rail industries won substantial concessions from their employers. At Starbucks, the Workers' United Union, which represents employees at 525 stores across the United States, said that walkouts would escalate daily and could reach hundreds of stores nationwide by Christmas Eve. Negotiations between the company and Workers' United began in April based on an established framework agreed upon in February, which could also help resolve numerous pending legal disputes. The company said it has held more than 9 bargaining sessions with the union since April and reached more than 30 agreements on hundreds of topics, including economic issues. The union, however, said in a Facebook post on Friday that Starbucks had yet to present a serious economic proposal with less than 2 weeks remaining until the year-end contract deadline. The Starbucks workers' strike comes in the same week as Amazon.com workers at 7 U.S. facilities walking off the job on Thursday during the holiday shopping rush. Still to come in sports, Malaysia knocked out of 2024 ASEAN Cup following draw with Singapore. Now, Malaysia was shown the exit from the 2024 ASEAN Cup campaign after a goalless draw against traditional rival Singapore in their final Group A match at the National Stadium in Bukit Jalil last night. The result confirmed Singapore's position as group runners-up, advancing to the knockout stage alongside defending champions Thailand, who top the group standings. Playing before 31,127 spectators, Malaysia, who needed a win, delivered an energetic performance and dominated the game, frequently launching dangerous raids on Singapore's goal in search of an early breakthrough. However, repeated attacks by the Harimau Malaya squad coached by Pau Martin Vincente failed to breach the goal mouth of Sutomu Ogura's side, who adopted a defensive approach, leaving the scoreline goalless at full time. Now, this result marked Vincente's final match with the national team, as he had announced his departure following the conclusion of the ASEAN Cup campaign. Now, Thailand will next face the Group B runners-up in the semi-finals, while Singapore will take on the group winners. Now, while Liverpool lead the Premier League table, boss Arne Slot says it is still too early in the season to evaluate their title chances. The Reds have a 2-point lead over second-place Chelsea after 15 games and are 6 points ahead of Arsenal, with a game in hand over both.
Yeah, I look at it like I've said for 3, 4, 5 months, judge the table after 19 games, because then everybody played the same opponents. probably we all had a bit of the same bad luck and a bit of the same luck. That means Arsenal, for example, had a lot of red cards in the beginning of the season. That's why they dropped points. Now we were unfortunate to receive a red card, and we dropped points as well. We still have Tottenham away, which were games that I compare now with Arsenal had to play in the beginning of the season. Chelsea already played there, so yeah. Don't look at it where you were during the season. It's about where you are in the end of the season. But the best other moment to judge the league table is halfway.
Liverpool travel to Tottenham tomorrow in what will be a preview of their League Cup semi-final against Spurs. Ange Postecoglou's Spurs beat Manchester United 4-3 in their League Cup quarter-final on Thursday, a night after Liverpool booked their berth in the semis with a 2-1 win over Southampton. Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola said they will be without defender Ruben Dias for 3 to 4 weeks with a muscle injury. Another blow for the reeling champions, whose hopes of hanging on to the Premier League title is dwindling. Now, City travelled to Aston Villa on Saturday, hoping to right the ship amid the worst run of results in Guardiola's managerial career that has them languishing 5th in the league table.
I said yes. 3-4 weeks will be out. Muscular. 75 minutes against United felt something but he's so strong and he won't stay on the pitch and now he's injured.
City have just one victory to show for their last 11 games across all competitions. Diaz was injured in City's calamitous 2-1 derby loss to Manchester United on Sunday. The City lost to United in spectacular fashion last weekend, leading in the 88th minute before their crosstown rivals scored 2 goals in less than 2 minutes. Fellow defender Manuel Akanji, however, returned to training this week after suffering an injury early this month. Chelsea manager Enzo Maresca has been at pains to play down the club's chances of winning the Premier League in his first season in charge. But if they beat Everton away on Sunday, then for a few hours at least, his side will top the table. Now, the Italians' insistence that Chelsea are not ready to win their first title since 2016 to 2017 is understandable, given few predicted a realistic challenge by the London outfit this term.
I don't think so. First of all, because we try to focus on the game, not on the consequence of the game that can be leader for a few hours. So this is the first reason. And then since we start, I'm trying to convince the player not to just to be focused on the game plan, how we can beat them, how we can do the right things, no more than that.
However, the evidence so far suggests that what the Italian says in public and what he actually believes are not aligned. With a deep and richly talented squad that has a combined market value of more than €1 billion at his disposal, Chelsea look more than capable of taking the fight to leaders Liverpool. Now, ahead of the Goodison Park trip, Chelsea are the Premier League form team. They have won 6 and drawn 2 of their last 8 games and are top scorers with 37 goals from 16 games. FIFA and Netflix have signed a deal to broadcast the 2027 and 2031 editions of the Women's World Cup in the United States, in a statement by the World Football's governing body on Friday. Now, FIFA said the Women's World Cup will be the first competition to be acquired in full by Netflix, and US-based fans would be able to watch every match live. The agreement also includes Puerto Rico, while it will cover all languages with a dual telecast in English and Spanish in the United States. In a statement, FIFA President Gianni Infantino said as a marquee brand and FIFA's new long-term partner, Netflix has shown a very strong level of commitment to growing women's football. In 2027, Women's World Cup is set to be played in Brazil between 24th of June and the 25th of July. The first time time, the tournament will be held in South America. The 2031 edition's hosts are yet to be decided by the FIFA Congress. Apart from live coverage, Netflix will also produce a documentary series in the lead-up to both tournaments. Traditional art with Ivory Coast graffiti and Renaissance-era passageways coming up next in our Offbeat segment. Splashes of vibrant colors are reviving the urban canvas of Abidjan's Plateau district, the economic heart of the Ivory Coast. Ivorians have previously viewed graffiti with disdain, and graffiti artists were liable for prosecution. But that view is changing, and graffiti murals are increasingly common on city walls as the art form has gained acceptance. Towering murals and intricate graffiti pieces now adorn the exteriors of international hotels and major thoroughfares. The inaugural Ivory Grove Graffiti Festival attracted around 40 national and international artists who spent 2 weeks in November converting bland walls into 300-meter-long works of art. Benjamin Levy, president of festival organizer Grove Ivoire, said he was proud to have launched a new initiative. The passers-by also admired the artists at work and expressed approval for their efforts to revamp the urban centre.
On a envie d'œuvrer pour notre pays et son développement culturel. Donc comme c'est le premier festival de street art en Côte d'Ivoire, on est assez fiers. On a la chance d'avoir parmi nous des gens qui ont une expérience. Au Sénégal, ils sont à plus de 15 ans de festival, qui ont invité des artistes internationaux.
A Renaissance-era raised passageway that connects Florence's Uffizi galleries to the Medicis' former residence, Palazzo Pitti, will reopen to the public later on Saturday, offering spectacular views of the historic Italian city. The Vasari corridor, named after Giorgio Vasari, the 16th century architect, painter, and art historian who designed it, snakes its way through central Florence, passing over the Arno River via the Ponte Vecchio Bridge, one of the city's landmarks. The Uffizi Museum, which manages the corridor and oversaw restoration and safety upgrades costing 11 million euros, called it an air tunnel hovering over the heart of the city. It was built in 1565 in just a few months to allow Florence's rulers to move freely between their home and Palazzo Vecchio, the seat of the government, passing also through the Uffizi galleries. The corridor, which had been closed since 2016, will open to groups of up to 25 people at a time who can walk through it from the Uffizi to the Pitti's Boboli Gardens, crossing over the Arno from the right bank to the left. In recent decades, the passageway hosted the Uffizi's vast number of self-portraits, but in its newly restored state, its walls were stripped off of all paintings and left bare as they were 5 centuries ago. And that wraps up World Today this time around. In our top story, U.S. House of Representatives passes legislation to avert government shutdown. To all our Chinese viewers, happy Winter Solstice Day. I'm Jessica Lee, Malaysia Madani. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later.